One, two, three.
Welcome to Scéalta. My name is Joe Austin, and can I remind those who are listening or watching that Scéalta is a product of Fáilte Fears to Hear and Film Fubble. And if you've ever watched television when you see someone saying, my guest doesn't need any introduction. Well, my guest really doesn't need any introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyway. So it's Adrian Dunbar. Welcome back to Belfast. There's no point in saying welcome to Belfast. You're here more often than I am.
I am. I'm here a lot.
And can I thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule? You're filming at the moment, Line of Duty.
Yeah.
Blockbuster back again.
Yeah, back again. Yeah.
Do you like Belfast?
Yes, I do like Belfast. You know, Belfast is my home city. When I left, my first, my first memory of Belfast was coming up during the Loyalist strike in the 70s to go out to Jordanstown. And I remember walking the length of I got a lift up on a guy in a vegetable van who was going to the markets. And I remember walking up the Donegal Road, me and this other guy from Derrigonley, thinking, we are just in the wrong place today. And we got down to Bradbury Place and we looked down, and where the Europa was, there was a line of, guys across the road stopping anybody going to work and all this. And we thought, well, we've got to get to this York Street station. How are we going to do that? And I saw this cop car coming down the road, and I said, I know. I says, wave these. They went, what? I says, we've got to get to York Street station. Oh. I says, yeah, how we, he said, I'll hop in the back. So the two of us hopped in the back of the car, the Peters took us down the road. They kicked every panel of that police car.
On the way past?
On the way through. And when we got to York Street station, they went, get out, get out. Like this here, like they mean. So that was my first time going to Belfast. The second time was when I finished a drama school in London. And I came to Belfast and I got my first work in Belfast. Belfast's always been really good to me. Anything that I wanted to do, anything that artistically I wanted to start, there's always been somebody in the arts community that's there to help me. I got my first jobs in radio with the BBC here. I got my first start in the theatre at the Lyric Theatre, where there was a huge burgeoning, of course, in the 1980s. Early 1980s. So Belfast is my home city, and I've always been really, grateful and appreciative of the people of Belfast, all the people of Belfast who have supported the stuff that I've been doing over the years, particularly the work that we've done in the Lyric Theatre. The Lyric Theatre now is one of the most beautiful theatres on the island of Ireland and in the UK as well. And, it's a really, it's a testament to that theatre that it kept going the whole time, through the troubles and so forth, and the conflict. So, Belfast, my home city. Anybody asks me, it's not Dublin. I love Dublin. But, this is the city that I want to see doing well. This is a city I want to see restored to being a northern powerhouse. 80% of the manufacturing in Ireland before partition came out of Belfast, North Down, Antrim. You want to see that happening again. I've always thought that Belfast is like Amsterdam and Rotterdam, where they used to say, Rotterdam makes the money and Amsterdam spends it. I thought it had that relationship.
I suppose from a professional point of view, the fact that you're filming here, the fact that in the Line of Duty has been filmed just round the corner on the Falls Road, is something that if you had explained that to someone 20 years ago, that I thought you were on the drink. This was something that was never going to happen.
Yeah.
When I was trying to research a wee bits about you, and of course I know you and I know your media work, but I could describe you in equal proportions as a director, as an actor, as a playwright, as a singer. How do you describe our Adrian?
Well, my mother used to say I was a jack of all trades and a master of none, you know, that type of thing. When I was growing up, I have 5 generations of carpenters in my family, you know. And I'm the oldest of 7 and I've 2 brothers, and the 2 of them are great carpenters. But I remember as a child out the back, playing out the back, banging away with, you know, the tools. My mother turning around to me, Auntie, saying, "What am I going to do with that child? He has no hands." He has no hands. And so I kind of knew from an early age that I wouldn't be able to do that. But then there was other things that I got involved with. I got involved with music first, you know. But I think variety is great for anybody, if you know. And in these days, you have to be able to do 2 or 3 things, you know, to keep the whole thing. And to take pressure off it. If you're only doing one thing, there's a lot of pressure on that one thing to get it right and to do this, that, and the other. But if you're doing, like, if you're directing, if you're, you know, doing a bit of music, and you know, I've just started a kind of mixed arts company and mixed media arts company and stuff like that. You know, if you're interested in the likes of Samuel Beckett and Brian Friel and, you know, Seamus Heaney, and, you know, so I've got interest in all these areas, and they all feed into the same creative thing. It's all about staying in your creative head, because if you can stay in your creative head, it's a really good place to be.
This is meant as a compliment rather than an insult.
Yeah.
Your creative head is quite big.
Yes, I do have a very big creative head.
No, I don't mean a big head. I mean the stuff that you are involved in and the stuff that you kind of shine in is actually very varied and it's very wide. Was there a stage, half your life having been racked by your mother who said you weren't going to be a joiner, was there a stage where you went, I'm going to be an actor, I'm an actor?
Well, I thought I was going to be a musician. You know, I thought I was going to play in bands. I used to play in bands. I started a wee 3-piece country band when I was at school. And I just loved that, playing in the wee bars and stuff. And we were young, you know, so people let us away with being shite. And but we weren't too bad, like, you know, we could knock out a tune. But I think it was because we were like 15 and 16 and 17, and people, you know, in the bars, and they knew who we were and all that kind of crack. But then I got a job with a guy called Frank Chisholm.
Yes.
Frank was a very well-known Elvis Presley impersonator.
Yes, of course.
Probably one of the best ever, I would say, you know. And I often remember we played in the Crumlin Star, you know. We'd be going down to, the Boucher Road and being met by a white Cortina and driven up. You know what I mean? Like, in those days, you know, it was dicey, like, you know, in the 70s. I'm talking about 77, 78, 79. You know, it was dicey travelling around the country in those days, and we saw a lot of stuff, and we were in 5 or 6 accidents and stuff that happened and all the rest of it. But we did play Belfast. We got up and we played, you know, the Abercorn just before it went up. We played, you know, we played out in Bangor. We got stoned out of Larne. You know, we did all that kind of, you know.
Baptism of fire.
Well, yeah, we were right into Larne, and unfortunately we hadn't practiced the Queen at that point, so we didn't know it. So that was a bit dicey that night. And then we were in Clonus a few nights later, so we had to get our head around that. So so that was kind of, you know, I thought I was going to be a musician, and had a great time on the road with Frank. Dublin was great for us, and you know, it was great seeing the rest of the country, and you know, but it was always getting up in here, was always had an energy about it, and an excitement about it, because people were ghettoized, you know.
Of course.
There was no transference in the city. You had to realise, you know, and don't forget then, before that, I had lived from 1970 to 76 in Portadown on the Garvaghey Road. Yeah. So I didn't know what that kind of feeling was like, of being ghettoized and not really being able to get down into the town, because you were worried in case you'd run into kind of, you know, guys who were, you know, I mean, and I'd never come across that in Enniskillen. We didn't have that balance. You know, that sectarian thing wasn't really prevalent. It happened. There was a bit of a frisson around the 12th, you know, and guys kind of, you know, but that actual, you know, that worry, you know, I remember. You don't mind me talking about all this kind of thing?
No,
I remember I used to learn to play the flute, and I had to walk into a place called Eden Derry, which was a big loyalist stronghold. And I knew the flute was a passport for me because they would see me with a flute and everything. But I remember I used to cross the Shillington Bridge, and I would be like trembling. I used to want to throw the flute into the ban, you know. Think this flute, my auntie has sent me the money to buy this thing, and it's making my life torture, you know. My auntie in England sent the money, and so that was the first time I kind of remembered that kind of that real worry about that thing. And then of course there was the biggest transference of people since the Second World War. People just moved like that.
Yeah.
3-bedroom house in Brownstown wants 3-bedroom house in Churchill Park, 2-bedroom house and wants to go to Cork Crane, this, that. People just started moving like, it was in the newspapers. You were looking, I mean, it's hard to believe, but there was adverts in the newspapers of people wanting houses and stuff like this.
Of course.
You know, and suddenly the whole thing got polarised, and that was the moment that I realised that education was the key, and that the fact that we had 2 education systems was the massive problem in society. If you want to set up a dysfunctional society, the first thing you would do would be to set up 2 education systems based on religion. That is the core, because what does it do? It allows people to walk in and say, you know, that guy over there, he's going to burn you out. You go, no, he's not. I sat beside him at school. I know what he's like. He's not going to come and burn me out. He's my mate, right? So, you know, you can foster all kinds of fear in people if you tell them at the age of 5, and it's all proven. If you tell them at the age of 5, nope, you're not playing with Davy anymore. Davy's going that way. You're going that way. Oh dear. Psychologically, that sets up the thing in your head. What is the problem? What's wrong? What's wrong with him? What's my, you know? And that kind of that's to me. That's why I'm an advocate for integrated education, and I always will be, because I think that's one of the ways out of the impasse.
Segregation, of course, you're right. Segregation, by its very nature, creates them and us. It creates that barrier. And you don't get on with your neighbours by building higher walls. You get on with your neighbours by doing the thing you're talking about. Can I move you just a wee bit forward?
Yeah.
Was there any single individual actor who kind of convinced you that you could be an actor, that you could do it? Was there that moment where you said, I want to be like him, I want to do that?
Yeah, I really like Jimmy Ellis. Jimmy Ellis, when he arrived in Z-Cars in the 1960s, and you heard this regional accent, it was the first time you heard any regional accents, by the way. Yeah. Colin Welland and guys from the north of England, Welsh guys, you know, it was all these regional, before that just didn't happen. All actors were kind of trained to speak a certain way with received pronunciation. And to have Jimmy Ellis there, and his presence was so nice. He had a lovely kind of, his warmth, you know, there was a gentleness about him as a person, and he was, of course, Jimmy became a great friend of mine years later, and a scholar, and a kind of, you know, and a historian and so forth. So I think Jimmy was really inspiration to me when I was very young, because I could see, as a teenager, I could see that there was a way, there was a route there, you know. And then I found out about, you know, other actors like Colin Blakely, who I really admired, and, you know, there's been loads of actors over the years, and I'm sure, you know, I'm missing out people who really were significant to me. It's not something I really have thought about a lot, you know, but I do know that knowing that it's possible for it to happen is a big thing for any community.
And that's it, and that's the reason I'm asking you, is that Belfast, and I'm sure you've came across them, Belfast is full of budding actors and actresses, people who watch you or they watch others, and they are inspired by them, but they don't know how you do it. You don't know what to do or how you get there. Although it has changed since your days in Ulrich, it's got better, I have to say. London, when you went, I know you went at a fairly early age, and I think you'd done some of your training in London, did you?
Yes, I did. I was very lucky. I got into the Guildhall School of Music and Drama right in the heart of the city of London, which was incredible. It was absolutely amazing. Of course, getting out, that was in 1980.
Mm.
So it was like, it felt like getting out of jail. You know, it just, you know, the first thing that struck me was, this has all been going on.
I just haven't found it.
Yeah, no, but like, this is like, life has been going on here. Like, I've come from somewhere like, where there's like, you know, 30% of the population are on prescription drugs because of the pressure and the tension.
Yeah.
But it's just been going on here.
And did you fall in love with London?
Oh, I've always loved London. I've always loved London. And, you know, and I really like London. It's, you know, I've lived in London like 38 years. So it's like, that's home. It's a fantastic European city. It's kind of, London didn't turn its back on Europe, by the way. The vote in London
Oh,
did
no,
not.
that's right.
You know, London has been enriched by the tunnel and all that, you know, people coming in.
If you were to kind of put together an interview about your body of work, we'd be here for 3 weeks rather than 2 weeks. It's from my left foot right through and all the stuff that you have done.
Mm.
But let me tell you a strange coincidence. My father died and he was 101. And he was a very active man, he was a very good man, as father should be. But he seen at one stage, Hear My Song. And he remembered that Joseph McLaughlin had been an RUC man on the beat at the street where we lived. And he watched your film every night. Now you obviously aren't aware of that. But that, for a lot of people, I think, propelled you into their living rooms, into their cinemas and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, you were quite young when you were involved in it. It seemed to be, watching it, you seemed to be having a core time. You seem to be having the time of your life. And it's an Irish story. You know, what I mean by that is, it's a wee bit of devilment, a wee bit of talent, a wee bit of all of that. Do you get to a stage when you're producing something like that, when you're involved in something like that, and you go, this is a winner, I've got this, or I've got this where I want it? Do you get to that stage?
Well, it's a very good thing to ask me about, because it's probably one of the best times of my life to hear my song. I mean, I wrote it with a friend of mine called Peter Chelsom. Peter's mother and father owned an antique shop under the pier in Blackpool, and Eric and Ernie and everybody used to come in, and Joe used to come in and he used to buy the odd thing off them and stuff like that. I mean, Joe was earning 60 grand a year just in 1947.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable amounts of money. I mean, you know. And my father was a great lover of tenors, like a lot of Irish men. He loved tenors like Giuseppe Di Stefano and Mario Lanza, and, you know, loved all the great tenors. And so we had Joe Locke records. And I met Peter when we were doing a job, and he said, look, I've been asked, he said, you've ever heard of Joe Locke? I said, yeah, of course I have. I said, he's a brilliant, you know, everybody knows about Joe. And that is the definition, I think, of a star. That everybody has a story about him. You can't, you know, every taxi driver will have a story.
I met him.
Oh, Jesus, I met him, he was in some state. So I says, yeah, Pete, now let's sit, I'll write this with you. And as we were writing it, we realised we were on something really good. We used the whole, everybody loves somebody who cheats the tax man, you know, yeah, that's kind of all right. If you can get away with, you know, that's kind of,
Yeah.
you know, so Joe had sort of cheated the tax man. He wasn't allowed back to England, but we found out there was this guy called Mr. X, who looked like Joe and a really good singer, used to pretend. And the tax man showed up 2 or 3 times in his gigs, thinking that he actually, so we used that as the basis for the film. So we decided, right, we have to get Joe on board. Where is he? So we found out he was in Torremolinos. And we went out and we said to the guys, we've got to go out and we've got to get Joe to sign a waiver on this, otherwise we can't do anything, right? So, so they said, oh, we'll give you a banker's draft. I said, that's not going to be any good. This, you know. So they gave us 10 grand, right? So we had 10 grand in a suitcase. We flew to Torremolinos and we found Joe in the you know, the Jolly Roger.
Open court.
Pork chop and chip, you know, pint of lager. Oh yes, boys. Oh, I didn't think we'd seen him. We went down to see him in the Braemore rooms in Dublin. I didn't think I'd see you two boys again. Yeah, that's all right. He says, oh yeah, we're all here. Jimmy Torbuck lives there, and Norman Wisdom's here, and all that. We'll meet you tomorrow night. Have a read of the script, Joe. You know, you have a read of the script. So we met him the next night, and he'd written this thing in the bottom. In no way must you mention this, or this, right? He says. So basically, I said, but Joe, we can't do it. If you want us to sign that, we can't do it. Anyway, he was driving us mad for a couple of days, and then one day I said to Pete, I said, just show him the dough, like. So we were sitting down at breakfast, and Pete said, look, Joe, you've got to sign this, otherwise we don't. And we brought this, and he saw the money, and he just went, where do you want me to sign it? And he just signed it like that, closed the thing, left his breakfast, stood up, and walked away, and we thought, what the fuck? So we walked after him. He walked straight across the road into the Bank of Spiritus Anchor and went, Manuel!
Get it in the bank.
Stick you out of my thing, and that was it, you know. So yeah, and we knew we were. I mean, making it was one of the best. You know, I'm really delighted you brought it up. Making it was one of the best times of my life.
Can I just self-indulge? I think in every good film or every good play or in every good book, there should be a line, a scene, or a piece where you go, I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
And I remember. And it's a wonderful film, but I remember there's a scene that the boat is leaving from Killybegs, I believe,
Yeah.
and it's leaving with Joe Lack on it to be smuggled in to do
Yes,
the
yes.
You or whoever coordinate Lack's voice with the ripples of the water and
Yes.
the sun in Killybeg, and that's magic.
Yeah.
That is inspiration. So the question I'm going to ask you. Is it a professional thing or is it just an ability that you have? Do you see stuff like that and go, that's it, that works? Or how do you put those different elements together?
Well, you know, it's a lot of the time, it's just, you know, our job is so collaborative. So many things have to go right for it to be right. First of all, you have to get the right script. Then, we were lucky. We wrote the script. Peter directed it, so he had it all in his head. He knew exactly what we were looking for. Then we found one of the best editors. All these people are now massive people in Hollywood. The designer, the costume designer, they've all won Oscars, all of them on that film. We gave the first job to a wee guy called Jimmy Nesbitt.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You know. You know, he hasn't done too bad. We've done so many things came together. But then we had, in that scene, don't forget, Paddy Cole's in that scene. You know, Joe Cuddy. We brought guys in who were like personalities, who've got great personalities about them. You know, we found actors and, you know, and it was just a joy to work with these guys. And they all knew we wanted to make something that had, you know, a bit of heart, that was kind of like a Whiskey Galore type, Ealing type, you know, loads of heart in it, and all about a bunch of misfits, you know, triumphant in the end, you know, and, you know, the cops and everybody trying to get them, but they can't get, you know, stuff that you really love.
Always just behind
them, you know, and as you say, a divilment and a twinkle and all that stuff. And here my song's got all that. So very, you know, it's a very Irish film, I think, in many ways, you know. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you just, and you said, you know, you dabbled a wee bit in music and you kind of like music and all of that. Obviously, it's much more than that. You have a love of music, and I believe is your daughter involved in music now?
My daughter certainly is. Madeline, yes, I'm very proud of Madeline. She's just passed her Master of Arts in a place called the Tile Yard in London, and so she's into rap, hip hop.
Are you?
Not really. There's a bit of a divide. I just, I've enough in my head,
Yeah,
that's a bridge too far for me. I mean, she's gone to America. She's studied it. She knows where it comes from, what its origins are. She's written her dissertation in it. I'm really proud of Madeline the way she's kind of, got hold of all that. And she's working at the minute with severely disadvantaged and disabled children at the minute. That's how she earns her living. But yeah, so music's always been my mother. My mother's a great singer.
Yeah. Was she?
Oh, she was a fantastic singer, my mother. Yeah, I mean, she got Alzheimer's at the minute, God help her, and she's always been. My father died when he was 50, so she was left with like 5 kids. That me and my brother John were already in England, so she was left with 5 kids to bring up, and just had to bring them up, like a lot of women like that.
I was asking someone, this won't come as a surprise to you, but I was asking, I know I've seen you from afar, as they say, and I know you've been in the Connolly Centre at least on one other occasion, and I know you have a love of Connolly, and
Oh yes.
you see Connolly in the light of a healing process and
Oh yes.
lifting people from poverty and all that. But
Oh yes.
I was asking someone last night about you. Actually, you were standing in front of them when I was asking them, and they nearly
Oh yeah.
choked on the phone. But they described you as someone who loves conversation, loves company, loves to be with other people,
Yeah.
loves that interaction and all of that.
Yeah.
Your London years, your initial London years, did you miss that? Was it a London? I know you talk about the excitement of it, but was it? Did you miss Fermanagh? Did you miss Ireland?
I've never really missed Ireland because I've never really been away. I've always been coming back to work. Always been coming back to work. But all the time I was harbouring the want to have something back here. And I'll tell you a story. It was my brothers who got it going. They came to me and they said, look, there's very little work for us in the winter at the minute, and this is like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And we were using punts at the time, so that'll give you an idea. So said if you bought like a wee cottage or something like that, we're gathering up windows and rads and stuff like that through the year, we can do it up and spin it. So I says, all right, okay, let's do that. I says, but I've only got about 10 or 15 grand, like that's max, Oh yeah. Anyway, we're looking around for Fermanagh, couldn't find anything. So we look over the border anyway. I says, yeah, because we all, we spent a lot of our holidays in Bundoran, and like a lot of people listening to this program tonight might know. And so we were always down in the Bun, or else we were in Scéalta, or we were in Mullaghmore, or we were Cliffney. We were around that area. So they started looking around, and then they came to me one day and they said, we found this place. We were sorting a thing in Sligo, and it's the right money and all, and we went to see it and everything. So I said, oh great. He said, you definitely should come over and see it. So we came over. I didn't know anything. It was land with it and everything. It was 17 acres with it.
Quite big.
So I said, all right. So I didn't know anything about land. Now I had a mate who'd just been arrested, and he was in an open prison in just outside Black Lion. So I went to the governor and I said, you wouldn't let Derek out for the day, And he said, hear my song. I went, yeah. He says, he's all right, actually, he's just caught with a wee bit of weed,
Away you go.
Away you go. So we let him out for the day. But of course he knew I was coming to do that. So when he got into the car, I said, right, we're going to go and look at this thing. He says, no, we're not. He says, I have to get my haircut and get measured for a suit. So we had to get him doing all that first. Because he was getting out for a wedding in 2 weeks' time or something. Anyway, we got there. I looked at the cottage, stuck my head in. 3-room Irish cottage, terrible old asbestos roof on it, blah blah. And I was settled bed and a bit of a dresser and stuff like that, and a few Marian stuff, the religious stuff from the 1953 Marian year and all that. And walked to the top of the land. When I got to the top of the land, I swear to God, I was standing there, I could see Barnesmore up there, all the way over to Sligo, classy Bawn in Mullaghmore. you know, and on the back of me I was looking straight down Glenade into Manor Hamilton. I could see Allingham's Church on Ballyshannon. Yeah, it was unbelievable. I just came down, we went into Sligo, I stuck £1,000 on it and thought, that's it. About 3 months later, my wife and my mother flew over, because they wanted to see it, and they flew over, and Anna and Madeline, and they picked up my mother in Enniskillen and went down. Eventually they found it, because it's up a wee. They went in, of course they started rooting about. So Madeline kind of was pulled this box from under the bed, and she went, oh look, Mummy, there's an old photograph. And Anna went, oh yeah, look Nan, there's a photograph of a wedding. And my ma went, that's a photograph of my brother Willie's wedding in 1936.
My God.
And here's another photograph, all dead, these people. That's a photograph of my brother Fred at the wedding. You know? It was spooky. My mother said a dag with a rosary, of course, immediately, like as you would do, you know. But the bottom line is, you know, I found out how all that happened. Of course, I mean, we were all spooked out by it. I couldn't believe it. You know, and the locals couldn't believe it, because so it got out. You know, of course, it got out.
More than a coincidence.
Yeah, more than a coincidence. So what happened was, there was a girl called Christina McGlone who lived in that cottage, and she went to work in the Railway Hotel in Enniskillen in the 1920s. And Willie, my mother's brother, this is how I worked it out myself. I don't know whether this is true, but Willie, my mother's brother, married a girl from called Madge, who was from Manor Hamilton. Now the two girls, it's like 12 miles to Manor Hamilton. Yeah. So if they're both working, they're both from Leitrim, and you didn't really travel very far, and you wouldn't be travelling back and forth so much in those days. They became best friends. She was bridesmaid. She got a set of photographs to mark the event. But the thing about it all is that the tradition is, if you're clearing a house and you do not know who owns something, you leave it. That's the tradition throughout Donegal and Leitrim. Yeah. You know, when you're clearing the house and you go, who owns this, owns that? This is very particular. I wonder who owns that. Like, just leave it. Somebody might turn up, of course in the old days it was the family might come back, of course. You know, because the family would have left, you know, family might come back. But that was a real kind of moment that I realised, I'm in the right place here, this is my spot, I'm going to be all right here. Now, you know, when I think about it, we got the place for next to nothing, because, you know, there was a whole handling of a story behind that, you know.
Most of it legal, I'm sure.
Oh no, it was all legal, but there was a guy who could have bought it who didn't buy it because he thought he was maybe spending too much. But, you know, it came to me, and, you know, I've had I built a house there then and all that. So that's my spot.
Well, can I ask you, are you a lucky person? Is that a pattern? You know, do things kind of come your way?
What's it the fella says? I never ask God for money just to put me where money is. You know, it's like, no, you know, I don't necessarily. I work hard to do the stuff I do, you know, and you know, it's like the guy says, the harder you work, the luckier you get. When I got into drama school, for example, I thought I was lucky, but really, when I look back on it, I could see that coming from Northern Ireland at that time was actually worked in my favour, because there was so much work coming out of Northern Ireland, and when people wanted to put together a class of young actors, they wanted to take people from all over. Yeah. We had people from all over the place in our class, so we could learn off one another. You know, we were all bringing something to the thing. You know, we were all bringing something. We were bringing different accents, different attitudes, different, you know, physicality. So we could learn all that stuff off each other. So I was like kind of, to them I was like, yeah, let's get somebody from Northern Ireland, let's get somebody from Scotland, let's get somebody from South Wales, you know, that sort of thing. And, you know, if they're all good, you know, a lot of good people.
But I have to defend you. If you're not going to defend you, there's also a lot of talent involved.
Well, they obviously wanted to spot the talent.
You know, from my
the raw
left
talent.
foot to Cracker, and I'm not going to list everything that you've been involved in.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I mean, none of them, I would imagine, from an actor's perspective, were an easy ride. They were demanding, you know, a return, that you'd done it right, that it was what they wanted.
Yeah. You have to get it right. You have to get it right, and you know, you're living your life at the same time, like.
Can I ask you about that? And I know you've, and I said at the beginning, and I'll say it again, I'm grateful that you were able to take, or that you created the time to come and talk to us. But do you get home much? Is your life kind of one job to the next? You've just finished a programme about touring in Ireland, haven't you?
Yes, I just did a kind of travelogue
Travelogue.
piece up the west coast. We started down in Mizen, and we went up to Malin, and we went round the north coast, and you know, which I mean, it was unbelievable. Like, you know, once you start seeing the island like that, you just can't. It really is like a special place.
Oh, of course, yeah.
You know, it really is. Like, you know, I've been all over the place doing stuff, and there, you know, and Australia, New Zealand, you know, Thailand, you know, Bali, North America. You know, I've been in loads of places, and really amazing places like the Rockies and things like that. But you know, getting out to the Skelligs, going to the Aran Islands, you know, just seeing the variation of going through the Burren, but it's not just that. It's like, you know, it's like the people as well. The people you meet. The people have imbued the place with a real sense of itself. Hitting wee towns like Listowel, you know, the real. You can tell these places have got personalities. You know, like really proper person. They're not pickled in aspect. They're still alive. There's things happening in them. People are doing. There's real vibrancy about the place. You know, Ireland's a really massively creative place. You know, everywhere you go, people are trying things, doing things, having ideas about stuff, finding new ways of doing things. You know, it's really, you come up that west coast and you suddenly see, and then of course, you know, coming up the west coast now was very interesting because of the lockdowns thing and all that. I'd never seen, you know, cars from Kerry and Tipperary and Clare up in Bundoran and up. I'd never, in Donegal, never seen them. And people are travelling, you know, they're starting to actually discover their own country a bit. And it's very impressive.
I have to say, just watching you describing that, and watching your eyes and watching your hands, and there's an expression which you're familiar with about taking the man from the bog, but the bog's, you know. So there clearly is that love of Ireland that you retain, and I mean, I don't mean geographical Ireland. I mean Ireland, its people, its culture, its music, and all of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really exceptional place. You know, I mean, you know, of course, everybody's got a big draw for where they come from. Of course they have, you know, that's, you know, it's really important to us, you know, and you can see why somebody from, you know, the valleys in Wales or from the west coast of Scotland and, you know, or living in the Rockies, the awe-inspiring stuff. But, you know, Ireland has got, you know, it's a special place. We know it's a special place. You know, we know that. I think there's a thing within us that makes us know that, and know that but we have to kind of get out there and engage with it more. And you know, but people are. I mean, there's stuff. I mean, who knew about the new music scene in Ireland? I've just discovered that new music scene. You know, it's really vibrant, and there's really smart people, you know, involved in it. And you know, and you look at the literature. I mean, but here's, you know, we were going to talk about the arts, and we should talk about the arts because the arts are an antidote at the moment to economics. Because the Uachtaráin talks a lot about this, you know, the fact that we're kind of allowing ourselves to be, you know, everything's seen through this filter of economics. And that's wrong. That is wrong. You know, we have to start seeing things, you know, we have to and what I'm saying is the arts are an antidote to that. Because the arts are reminding us, you know, of our collective responsibility to creating a society. You know, all the time the arts are pushing us towards that. I'll never forget the first night of Sharabank's Lay Up Your Ends, and in the Arts Theatre, I suppose it was about 1980 maybe, you know, and or maybe a bit later than that, and you know, looking over at Paddy Devlin who was there, you know, and Paddy shaking his head going, why haven't we seen the likes of this?
Of course.
30 years ago, you know, showing how the mill workers, and of course, you know, we're here today, and it was Nora Connolly, of course, you know, the stuff that Nora did with the mill workers, which was so significant, you know, and she had great success with that. And I was reminded today, of course, that, you know, that her father handed her a pistol and told her to go up to Coal Island and see what was going on.
Try and organise, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but like during the rising, you know, and after the countermanding order came out, he just handed her a pistol and said, Nora, go up to Coal Island, see what's happening with McCartan and all them guys.
This is, of course, the purpose of the centre, that people can come in, and I said you've been here a few times, but people can come in and they can learn more than the myths that they think they know about.
Yes, that's right.
We talked there about your travelling, we talked about the line of duty, and do you, physically is it a very demanding, being a successful actor? I know being a non-successful actor is a very hungry job, but being a successful actor, is it physically a demanding job?
It is demanding on your time because, you know, you have to, you know, it's like my brother, you know, is a joiner, you know, it's very difficult to turn down work. You know, it's difficult if somebody wants you to do a job to turn it down, you know. So you have to be, but you have to do that sometimes. And you know, I left school, I went to work in an abattoir. I worked in an abattoir for the best part of 2 years, you know, killing pigs. I know how difficult, I was getting £80 a week. I know how difficult it is to earn 20 quid. So when somebody offers me money, you know, like, I find it hard to walk away from it. So I could be working a lot, but you know, you have to carve out time for other stuff. But then I do other things, and that's where the variety comes into it. So it stops me from, those things are different disciplines, and so they help.
I don't know why you're still, or you were involved in a theatre production in Enniskillen. Are you still involved in that?
Oh, with the Beckett Festival?
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately the Beckett Festival is not happening at the minute, obviously, yes, but I do. I'm actually, this company that I formed with my friend Nick Roth, we are curating a Beckett Festival in Liverpool at Liverpool University that reminds me, I must talk to that gentleman I met downstairs there.
Phil Scraton?
Yeah, I must talk to Phil because it's about confinement. You know, I must talk to Phil about that. But sorry about that. But I digress. We're creating a Beckett Festival in Liverpool between Liverpool University and Notre Dame in America. Looks like we've got funding for that. So that's next year in July. You know, so I do a lot of things like that. You know, I'm really interested in poetry. You know, obviously I love Seamus's work, and we go up I've been up in a home place doing things there because, you know, I just want to, and Brian Friel, I love Brian's work. You know, I spend time promoting his work wherever I can. You know, so there's, you know, you carry the torch for loads of things. You know, that's exciting. You know.
Because you're so approachable, I hope you don't mind me saying that, and because, as I said earlier on, you have a gift with people, and you clearly do. Do you find yourself being propelled as an actor's champion, or do you find yourself kind of fighting arts battles, or can you kind of be part of that without having to lead it? Do you know what I mean? Like, can you just kind of part of the revival?
Yeah. I mean, I'm always, you know, I get behind all kinds of things where I think I can help. And you know, locally in London over the years, I've been involved in things. You know, saving building, saving
Yeah.
stuff, you know, working locally with people, you know, over issues, you know, because I find, you know, it's so worthwhile. You know, it's really, I mean, integrated education I find so worthwhile. I find the young people who are coming out of the integrated education system really amazing. You know, they have no baggage with them. They're walking into rooms, they're not carrying anything with them, they're open, they haven't been indoctrinated, they haven't been, you know, it's a really, you know, that is something special I find. And I know a lot of them are going to be our leaders into the future because they cannot be pigeonholed in that respect, you know, within our society. So I'm very proud of that work that's being done. But, you know, and I do find that, you know, most actors will get behind causes, you know, if we can help. There's no doubt about that. Actors are helping all the time. It's one of the things that we see as our responsibility for being in the public eye. I mean, my brother's got a real problem down in Enniskillen at the moment with a whole sewerage system that's gone to hell out the back of his house. I've been on the news talking about that. That looks like it might be resolved. You know, that's because, you know, I get down there and Michelle comes along and Arlene Foster gets in behind us and you know that generates a bit of publicity for it, and then the various agencies that have been dragging their feet sit up and listen. So, you know, that's the kind of...
I think you would be a hard man to refuse, by the way.
Well,
let me tell you, I think you would. For an actor's success sometimes is governed by BAFTAs or Oscars or audiences. You're really famous because you've got a mural in Belfast.
I've got a mural.
There's not many people can say that.
I have to say, I have now got a mural. It's a great honour. And I'll tell you another thing too, the guy has actually done a good job.
It's a great job.
Because sometimes, you know, you might end up with cross eyes and stuff like that. So, the guy who did a great job. Vicky and Martin have already been down. Martin says he's going to put his Celtic top on and stand up against it like he's having a slash. And he's pissed. Vicky is going to do something else, and I'll tell you. But
no, it's okay. Fine.
So they're all into having a laugh at that. But no, you're right. I've got a mural, and I have to accept that that's a great honour.
I think the next honour, by the way, because you're here more often than me, I think the next honour that we should work on is freedom of the city.
Yeah, that'd be a laugh, wouldn't it?
I think it's very appropriate.
That would be a laugh.
Well, let me just tell you this: lesser people have gotten it. But I think it's something that we can work on. I have used up 55 minutes of your valuable day.
No,
I want to just kind of...
I've enjoyed it. I enjoy it. Look, I can talk, you know, just switch me on away I'll go.
There's one last question that everybody... See, I've been telling everybody, now I'm famous. I'm famous because you're famous.
Right, okay.
So I've been telling everybody that I was interviewing you, and I've been asking people for scandal about you and questions about you. I haven't got any, by the way.
Yeah.
But I'm going to ask you this, and I know you're going to give us the answer. Who is Hitch?
Right.
I'm only joking, by the way, but if you want to divulge it, will you go for an exclusive? We don't mind.
Do you remember there was one time, I don't know what they did, but they did a big aerial shot and you could see the blocks.
Yeah.
And all these people started getting on going, oh right, did you see that H? That's got something to do with it and all, you know, and they were people are looking for H everywhere. So we've never known. Jed doesn't. He has.
Jed is the writer.
He is the writer.
Yeah.
Jed Mercurio.
Yeah.
Genius of a guy, brilliant writer, and he's never really told us who H is, and I don't know really if we're ever going to find out who H is. This series, I think we're concluding. We're trying to bring the current, you know, storyline to an end. And then we might go again for a 7th series. I don't know. That's in the lap of the gods. It all depends what kind of numbers we get. But there's no doubt that the series has taken, you know, people. It's in there now. It's like kind of it's a thing.
Absolutely.
It's a thing now with people, and people love it, and people here in Belfast love it, and they love all my wee kind of up the lagan in a bubble and stuff like that.
Yep.
I got one in this year, but they haven't used it. You know, there was a bit at the end of a scene where I said to a guy, dry your eyes.
Well, you can say it for us.
I can say to you,
yeah, dry
your eyes.
Listen, I want to thank you. You've been a,
That's
a
all.
wonderful guest.
That's all.
And this is our coming of age interview. So for your time, for your talent, for your crack, for all of that, Gormilla, thank you very much.
Come on. COVID.
COVID indeed.